Alright, there you go.
There it is. Well, oh Jesus! I just forgot the episode.
This always happens. Hi, everybody. This is Your Book is Why Daddy Drinks. This is
second live podcast.
That's it. Yeah, our second live podcast. Season 3, episode 4 of.
I'm glad somebody does some goddamn paperwork around here.
Yeah, I'm looking at the blog right now, and and you know what? It's even in the title of the Hangout.
There's a title of the Hangout?
I don't know the title.
It's on my screen only. Anyway, this is season 3, episode 4. We reviewed Bumped by Megan McCafferty. I, of course, am Matt of the Two Pens Writing blog at twopens.wordpress.com. And
this is Tyler of Amazon Gave Me All My Money Back for Watching Twilight.
You lucky son of a bitch.
Yeah, and with us this month is our book provider and guest host.
Go.
This is where you introduce yourself, Emma.
Hello. I'm Emma. I'm from Minneapolis, but I happen to live in Australia, where it's now actually winter. So I'm like all blankets, and while you guys are probably enjoying some warm weather over there.
I am still in shorts. It's 10:45 at night, and I'm in shorts.
Every door in my house is open, and it's 70 degrees outside.
Yeah.
No, well, here it gets to be like 50, and they're like, "Oh my God, it's freezing."
Sounds like some Californians I know. Not San Franciscans. San Franciscans are like 50's warm, man. Where the hell are you talking about? But anyway, you're a fairly new member of the Facebook group. I think you joined in February. How did you find out about the podcast?
Recently, I actually listened to Brass Needles. So
oh, sweet.
Yeah, so Aaron mentioned it at some point, or sorry, Miss Calendar mentioned it at some point, and so I thought I'd check it out. So I listened to like Literary Disco and Books on the Nightstand and a bunch of other book ones, so this one sounded fun.
Sweet. Yeah, Aaron is a very, very good friend of ours. Good friend of the show. She's actually going to be guest hosting the May broadcast.
Yeah, well, this month technically, but next month.
Yeah. So, Bumped. Before we get into Bumped, what are you guys drinking?
Go ahead, Tyler.
Sorry. I'm actually just drinking Dr. Pepper right now.
Mm-hmm.
But in about 15-20 minutes, when the drugs I've taken to control my cold and coughing kick in, I'm probably going to add rum.
Hey, because nothing goes better with cold medication than booze.
Yeah, I've been sick for the last week and could not take time off work because of it, so I'm actually really enjoying not doing anything today.
Hey, because you were starting to feel sick before the Twilight viewing.
I woke up awful that morning, and several people commented on it during the live show. They're like, "Oh man, Tyler looks horrible, and not just from the makeup."
More pasty face than that. Emma, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking Australian beer. This is James Square Sundowner. It comes in many different flavors, but this is the Sundowner, so it's a bit more citrusy, a bit more summery, so totally weather inappropriate, but it's my favorite one. I think it's from New South Wales, which is on the other side of the country. But yeah.
Cool. I am drinking Angry Orchard's Iceman. They did a run of a couple of different like specialty ciders. And,
yeah, they've got Iceman and they've got Strawman.
Yeah, and they're all kind of like these cool, super cool bottles and with etching in the glass. And
how are you liking the Iceman? And this is really weird for me to be saying, I think it's too sweet.
It is very sweet and very tart.
It's made to be like a Canadian ice wine.
Yeah.
Which are all like a really sweet sweet wine, and it's tasty, but I couldn't finish a bottle. And if you drink that whole bottle, you'll get fucked up. Because it's got a fairly high alcohol content.
Well, I'm going to be in for a good time tonight, I guess. Yeah, it means something, like to be had with dessert or something, like fruit, or I can see like even having it like if you were doing it before a meal, like with like apple slices and cheese or something like that. That would probably
Definitely.
go well with it. But anyway, Bumped. Emma, how did you find out about Bumped? Because you're the one who found out about the book.
Yeah. I actually read Bumped already years ago because I read a different series by the same author when I was a teenager. So, and I had kept following, I think they're called the Jessica Darling books, and I had been following them even kind of when I went into college age. And they're just, if I'm being honest, they're really boring, except for that the main kind of male lead is like this kind of, I guess now that I'm an adult and I can see him for what he is, he's just sort of a hipster douche. But you just love him. You want to keep reading the books because Marcus Flutie is just the best character. And it was definitely a huge letdown when I read Bumped, and I just thought, okay, never again. No more Megan McCafferty. So until now, until there was a reason to read it again.
Well, there you go. It certainly did not fail to live up to how bad I thought it was going to be. So yeah, synopsis of Bumped. Let's see. Bumped takes place in our world, an indeterminate amount of time in the future. They have
35.
What, 2035?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, 20 years in the future. They've got some more advanced technology. It's sort of like a little bit like smartphones, but smaller. And now you can incorporate gestures and blinks into it and everything else, and sort of like Google Glass, but without the glass. But anyway, and there has been an epidemic, a worldwide plague that has swept across the world and has infected large portions of the population. And the result of this plague is that at some point between age 18 and 20, people stop being fertile. They can't have kids. And so it puts a lot of focus on basically children having sex and reproducing so that the human race can continue. And that's where we pick up. We pick up with the main character, whose name is it Melody?
Melody.
Okay, it's Melody. And her twin sister, Harmony, because haha, Melody and Harmony. And basically, we're introduced to this world through their eyes, and it is a world that is simply and completely focused on basically kids getting pregnant. There's a whole level of marketing towards that, to the point where like there are such slogans as "Do the deed, born to breed" is like, the new juicy slogan, so that instead of juicy on the ass of like young girls' sweatpants, you might have like breeder or something like that. There are stores where you can go as a young woman and buy fake pregnancies. Basically, you can basically put on the pregnant suit and have this big, the big belly, and have animatronic babies squirming around inside, so you can see what you might look like. The slang is all about sex and pregnancy and being fertile. So, like, fertilicious is apparently a slang term for something good. Let's see what else.
They're the most important person on the planet. That they say a lot. As a teenage girl, you're the most important, as if they don't already think that when they're teenage girls.
Terminate, for instance, as in to terminate a pregnancy, is the worst thing that can happen. So, like, if you're super embarrassed, you might say that you want to terminate yourself, as in to end a pregnancy. Neggy or preggy, neggy are terms for good and bad. A term for people who are, for basically anybody who's not able to breed, obsolescence, because they're obsolete as people, apparently. Like, it's just, the entire worth and value of the society now is on your ability to breed, to the point where now the new superstars are not athletes and movie stars. They are super fertile people. Like, there are males basically who are stud males who are just, they're known for being super fertile, and so they're basically shopped around, and there's now a whole industry about going pro, where girls basically sign up with an agent and then auction off the ability to have sex with them.
Well, they don't auction off the ability to have sex with them. They auction off
the pregnancy,
the child that will be born from it, and then a good agent will find a popular male for you to have sex with, to then turn the child over to somebody, or they will negotiate for the child after you've become pregnant.
Yeah. So basically,
you're an amateur option as well.
Yeah, you're basically selling your children now at this point, and like to the point where you're, and there's apparently even the ability to take out loans against your children's fertility, which was just abhorrent to me. But anyway, we're introduced.
That was what was abhorrent to you?
No, there's a long list of things. That was just like, I want to shoot you people into the sun. So Melody was more or less adopted by kind of the people who almost got this whole thing started. Like, they wrote papers on the financial feasibility of basically selling your daughter's pregnancy and fertility and auctioning it off, more or less. And she's basically been treated as an investment by her adopted parents. Her conversations with her parents, who are off traveling the world, writing on the backs of their daughter's pregnancy contract, aren't, how are you doing? Are you okay? Basically they're following up on their investment. Is she practicing her guitar? Is she, she didn't, she's a goalie in soccer or football, and so she missed a couple of blocks. And they're not concerned about her well-being as a person or as their daughter. They're concerned about her attractiveness.
Her marketability.
Yeah, her marketability. And so we're introduced to Melody and also her sister Harmony, because her sister Harmony did not grow up with Melody. They were split up shortly after birth because I think their mother was a drug addict. And she and Harmony got adopted by a religious family. And apparently there are these religious communes all over the United States where people have basically sequestered themselves. And honestly, it comes down to kind of the stereotypical idea of what you think like frontier Mormonism was like. It's these kind of like group families where kids are married off as soon as they're able to start having children.
They have their engagements.
Yeah, they're engaged before they can even consummate the marriage, and then basically as soon as they're able, and you're doing it for God. We learned that Harmony escaped. Basically, she kind of lied to get out of the commune, like hawked her wedding ring to a taxi driver to drive her over to her sister's house, and you kind of find out that she was doing that initially because she thought that she wanted to bring her, she was feeling incomplete, and she thought that she should bring her sister to God, and then, because now she'd be with her twin, and her twin would be saved, and they'd be fulfilling God's work by marrying some person that they don't know and having babies with them as soon as they're able to. Then she would feel complete, but then that didn't work out. And basically, the plot of the book is this, that Melody has this looming contract over her head, and her agent has been trying to work with the family that she's basically going to be producing a pregnancy for, to find a suitable match. And he manages to score Melody a guy literally named John Doe. His first name is Johndoe, John Doe. But he, in talking about it, doesn't realize that he's talking to Harmony, to the religious sister. And
they all have like Skype video phones, and so he doesn't know Harmony's there, and the agent that is just talking to her.
Yeah, because in theory he knows about her, but he doesn't know she's there. So he arranges basically for John Doe to kind of almost kidnap her, and then he suckers her into having sex with him. And I'm a little bit confused, because at one point he supposedly takes Harmony home to parents.
Yes,
are those his actual parents?
I think so.
Because then he tells the agent that he's erasing all traces of the name and, I guess, identity he used from his record. So that means...
Yeah, he hasn't been home for a really long time.
Yeah, so he gets home and his parents are all...
He has to take her on dates and stuff for the press first.
Yeah.
And then fly the coop and go to his parents for some reason.
And then, well, he does that because she's religious. She starts, she sings the song about Jesus and how he's the perfect husband. And, I think that was the angle he was using basically to get to, have sex with her. Was that, oh, you're religious. I didn't know that. Hey, look at that. Conveniently, I am also religious, and we should religiously have sex.
I love how his name is... Oh, yeah. They reveal his real name is Gabriel.
Yeah. And we reveal...
the most literal book ever.
Yeah, and then you reveal that... also that his parents are not, Harmony's parents are, super religious, separatists wanting to live off in their own community. They almost sound like Amish Mennonites or something, and
I've actually discovered there is a religious movement that is very similar to them in this book. It's called the Quiverful movement.
Well, that's John Doe's parents.
No. Well, sort of, but the go join this society, have a whole bunch of babies, kind of thing. There's a movement called the Quiverful movement that is really similar to the church community.
And the whole idea behind the Quiverful movement is that you are basically trying to outbreed the devil by producing as many Christian children, and I can't remember the exact quote out of the Bible, but basically that children are arrows in the quiver of God, and so you want to make as many arrows for God as possible, and that's why they call it quiverful, because you're trying to make a quiver full of children. So anyway, John Doe sexes up Harmony, and
because she's having a religious experience by viewing him, this angel.
Yeah, he is so good looking that she instantly overcomes all of her previously stated fear of the actual act of having sex. And that's the thing, is that both Melody and Harmony are both kind of terrified of actually doing the deed. Like, to the point where, like, that's the reason why, even though she's married,
oh yeah, spoiler alert.
yeah, spoiler alert, Harmony's married, but they didn't consummate because, in part, she was scared of it. And then she meets John Doe.
There's another part to it.
Yeah, and then she and John Doe,
It's the two-pronged problem.
have sex, have sex multiple times, and then she, of course, finds out that, oh well, he's not the person she thought he was, and oh my God, I've been tricked, and this is all going so wrong, and
she knows she's pregnant.
And she instantly knows, like, oh my God, there's magic inside me. And she goes back to her sister's house and finds out that her husband, who just strikes me as, like I just picture him with, like, the bad, like, teenage attempts at growing facial hair. It's all patchy and like,
it's funny because I pictured him as Mose from The Office.
I've never seen The Office, so I have no idea who you're talking about.
Him as like a Paul Bunyan, just like gentle John.
And and then she decides that, well, she's gone off and realizes in seeing him again that she, in being selfish and running away, has hurt him, because since he left the compound looking for his wife, he can't get back in without her. So she decides that she's going to go look for him. And then you find out, and then the plot line with her sister, with Melody, is that she's got this super lucrative contract to produce this pregnancy, but the family is dragging their heels on picking out a boy. And then there's the whole John Doe thing. But she doesn't really want to have sex. Like, there's plenty of opportunities for her to have sex. And she comes to realize that she doesn't want to have sex. And, in a society where the whole focus is having sex and producing children, that kind of makes you on the outs, especially when she's trying to be, like, the president of, like, basically, like, the pregnancy positive, like, girls club on school. It's called the Pro-Am Alliance, and what they mean by that is there's a conflict usually between girls who go pro and basically sell their future pregnancies to whoever's willing to pay them a car and college and a tummy tuck and all this other crap. And then the amateurs, the people who either for whatever reason can't go pro or choose not to go pro, and there's a lot of, like, stupid childish animosity between them, and so they had to form a club so that people would get along. And
the cheerleaders are not allowed to be in the club because they're all nutty.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
There's still slut shaming in this book. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And then her whole thing is that she's got this male best friend, of course, who's been hanging around and who's secretly loved her all along and wants her to be his first time. And it's just
Zen.
Zen, yeah, his name is Zen. And the end of the book is that Harmony has gone off with Paul Bunyan to go back to the religious commune. And John Doe shows up at Melody's house and all mopey and puppy-faced because, at least he says, oh no, really, I was being serious. I did actually fall for her, and she's the one I want to give up this, flying around the world and living this rich and superstar lifestyle and having sex with all of these different people. She's it. She's the one. And then Melody's like, yeah, okay, I'll help you go find her. And that's where the book ends. Like, nothing is resolved in this book at all. And, oh God, there's just so much horrible with this book. Tyler, Emma, why don't you like bring up a thing or two of the things that you found horrible with this book? That's Tyler.
Okay, I will go until we get him back, I guess.
Yeah.
For me, what I have a problem with this book the most, aside from the obvious, is just that just because you do something completely stupid and over the top doesn't make it a satire. There's no nuance. There's no cleverness to it. It's all completely on the nose. Like, it just, I don't know, I think of it as satire and it's like tongue-in-cheek and it's a little, hidden. But this book is so literal.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Like, I just, ugh.
The thing I think that was a huge turnoff regarding the book to me was the overwhelming. First of all, it's a book about kids having sex and fucking, and then you throw in on top of that, which in real life I don't have that much problem with children having sex with each other because, well, they're going to do it anyway. But I do have a problem when, in this book, you throw in the societal pressure, because it almost makes it, then you're going into the realm of like, okay, well, if you're pressuring people into having sex, then you're starting to get into sexual assault, sexual abuse, rape, and then you throw in, the fact that they're doing the whole financial pressure to have sex, where the amateurs, the people who can't go pro, it's talked about the fact that oftentimes the people who are amateur are either not as attractive in whatever way you want to think of,
not
that
as
people
tall.
who are pro. Yeah, they're not as tall. They're also not as financially affluent. And so you have the concept of people who are poor are selling their children. And then, I know that, technically with the whole going pro thing, you're selling your pregnancy, but really you're selling your access to pregnancy, which means that you're basically selling sex. And towards the end of the book, we're introduced to, an 11-year-old who is in the hospital at the end of the book, and
Oh yeah, because Melody's friend has a baby.
Yeah,
and because, the whole time that Harmony is with, we didn't say this before, the whole time that Harmony is with John Doe, everybody thinks it's Melody, so they're all over this MyNet Facebook equivalent thing in their future but nothing is private, so you don't have a private profile, you just have a profile and everybody can see it. So they're posting all this press information and everybody thinks it's Melody. So when Melody goes to the hospital because she's her friend's birth coach, this is a totally different friend whose name I can't remember because she's not really significant to the plot. So then she's got all these new fans now because she supposedly has coupled with or pregged with John Doe, and so I think that's when you're talking about when the young girl comes up to her and is like, I can't wait to be like you, and and even the parents, I think that I had a problem with that too, the fact that, it's only 20 years from now, but the parents in one generation would already think of their children as possessions just seems a bit far-fetched.
Yeah.
Or the fact that they roofie them so that they'll feel more in the mood to be sexual.
Yeah, and that was another thing, right? Was that first of all, there are children orgies. There are children sex parties where the whole intent is for you to go and have as much anonymous sex as possible in order to get knocked up. So that's fucked. But But also, like Emma was mentioning, there's a mass-marketed drug called Tosin that is specifically made to make strangers want to have sex for each other. It fakes the emotional connection that allows people to feel more comfortable with that. And then there's antitosin, which is supposed to be taken by girls during their pregnancy.
By everybody who's not supposed to fuck or grow attached to anybody in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be taken by girls so that they don't get attached to their pregnancy.
They don't let them call it their baby. They say their pregnancy or their bump.
Yeah, and their bump. Because it's not their pregnancy, it's somebody else's pregnancy, and it's not their baby. To the point now where baby is referred to as the B word. You don't even say it because apparently that's a dirty term.
They're not humans. They're
product.
They're
Commodities.
Yeah, and that's the thing is now you've reduced human and familial relationships to a dollar value. Your kids are not necessarily your children. They're basically your future product. Like I mentioned, Melody's parents took out a loan against the deal that she had with this couple, and they call her up to basically say, yeah, so we took out this loan, and the people we took out the loan with are calling in the loan. So we have found this couple. You're going to go fuck their kid and produce a baby for them, and they're going to give us the money to pay off the loan. And
yeah, because at this point, the agent was taking too long, or the Jadens, who are the people she actually has the deal with, were taking too long to find the perfect guy, because they pick Melody because she looks like the wife.
Yeah.
So, like, these really affluent couples have that capability, where they can actually sift through all these pro girls and pick someone that looks as much like them as possible. And then also, I think multicultural babies are more valuable, wasn't it, as well?
I don't remember.
I think so, because of genetic, how it improves your genetics. I think the more mixed they are. I don't remember. Maybe that was in the second book.
Well, and just the so imagine that you have these adopted parents, and they're basically telling you that they have pimped you out.
Right. By the way, you owe us this money now that you fucked up that other pregnancy.
Yeah, and that's how they put it, was you need to do this because you owe it to us. And
because we've been grooming you your whole life, and we've spent all this money on you and invested in you.
Yeah, and we gave you a home and put you up and put food in your face, and now you need to pop one, spread your legs and pop one out in 9 months. And it's just, the whole concept of this book is just kind of atrocious. And I was trying to think of, like, what the author might have been trying to criticize. Like,
no, she just wanted, I feel like, not to criticize her directly, but I feel like she was like, okay, I want to do a commentary on teenage sexuality, which is obviously a pretty hot button issue. There are a lot of books that talk about this issue. She's like, okay, but I want to do it with the highest stakes possible, because teens love reading books where the stakes are really high. So, I don't know. That's kind of my feeling. But I don't know what she was trying to say about teenage sexuality.
As I'm reading the book, I'm reading it and I'm saying this can't not be satire. But I can't tell what it's supposed to be commentary on. Like, is she thinking that teens are having too much sex? Is she thinking that they're not having enough sex? I don't know what's going on in her mind.
Are they not taking sex seriously enough?
Right.
But, like, she comes at it from so many different directions. I think in so many ways gets it wrong, because you have and no aspect of sex in pregnancy in this book is seen is positive. like for at least for me as a reader, because you've got the anonymous mass sex culture. You've got the selling yourself or your kids' pregnancies and ability to have children, and selling the product. Basically, you're selling your own grandchildren away. You've got the Harmony's religious family, who sex is something that you just do because that's what God basically commanded us to do, but you're not supposed to take any pleasure in it, and it's just there for procreation. And then you've got this other religious group who are like, yes, pregnancies all around, pregnancies for you, and you get a pregnancy, and you get a pregnancy. And it's just, and for them, having children is, as many children as possible, is the whole religious aspect of things, and being good with God in that sense. But that wasn't positive. They tried to put a kind of positive spin on that because John Doe apparently had sex with I don't know, his cousin or something. And
no, it's his brother's wife's sister. So his brother-in-law and her
his
sister.
brother and his wife couldn't have a kid, so he had sex with the brother's wife's sister, so they could have a kid that was as close to theirs as possible.
Yeah, and he did this at age 12 or something like that.
Very ridiculously young.
But none of it is seen as being, positive. They try and say that, there's this, everyone is sex positive, but it seems cheap.
Well, they have to give up something to get it, whether she's giving up her religious beliefs, or, if Melody honors her pact with Zen where they're going to have sex, if they get to a certain age and they haven't yet, because all teenagers have sex pacts, obviously. They all have to give up something of themselves. It's not just your virginity anymore. It's you have to give up your opportunity to use sex in a positive way. It's never I'm going to do this because I enjoy it, because we forgot to say that condoms are now illegal and they don't make them anymore.
Yeah, it is now, condoms, and I would assume all other forms of birth control are illegal, because with such a low amount of the population able to produce children, you need as many children as possible. So
because somehow we've eradicated STDs, they never even talk about STDs.
Oh, they never talk about STDs. They never talk about homosexuals. There's not a single gay person.
That is not true.
What?
There's one.
There's one gay person in the entire book, and it's the religious dude. That's why he gets paired up with.
Yeah, he gets stuck with Harmony because they're both.
Exactly, because they're both these little awkward turtles. They're like, well, nobody wants to be with them, so we're just going to stick them together, and maybe they'll trip and fall on each other in the kitchen one night and have a baby. But just get them the fuck out of here.
But also you don't have... sure, that's one person, but...
Right, but it's never addressed anywhere else in the book.
Yeah.
And...
Also, you don't have the people who don't want to have sex, and it's just
Melody. I feel like she gets to a point where she would want to have sex with Zen, because apparently that's the only way that teenagers show love for each other.
Right.
Yeah. And when your entire existence is focused on a guy sticking his penis in you. And your existence is sticking your penis in, somebody else. It's of course that's going to be the only outlet you have for expressing that.
Yeah, but I think that's a fault of a lot of books, to just assume that, as much as I would agree that all teenagers are hormonal and all that, I don't think that every teenager on the planet is just focused on how they can get someone to have sex with them all the time. But that's
because you were never a teenage boy.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, teenage boys are one raging hormonally induced hard-on, pretty much from 13 to about death.
Well, I wouldn't say there are no teenage girls that are like that either. Girls are probably more curious than desperate. Is that I don't know if that's a mean thing to say. I don't mean it like that, like in a bad way.
No, that's totally accurate.
Yeah, that's totally accurate. No, the desperation is definitely, I think, and I think it comes down to is for boys is that they're like, biology is just going, you will do this, and they don't even know what the fuck this is. They're like, I know what sex is, but I don't know what these desires are going. I'm confused.
Well, I don't know what sex is, but society is telling me that I have to have it to be a man.
Yeah, and
well,
also
that's the whole other issue.
Yeah, there's huge cultural issues regarding sex, and nobody has it right.
Well, and then also, I mean, and that's even reflected in some ways in this book, right? When Melody meets the 11-year-old, she's pregnant because society told her to be pregnant, and because that's well,
the 11-year-old wasn't pregnant, but she was wearing the fake thing and saying, "I can't wait to be pregnant."
Oh, because see, I read it as that's the reason why she was in the hospital, was that, and because the nurse even tells her.
Girl.
Yeah.
There was a girl who was 11 or 12 who was bored. Remember, she couldn't wait to just get it out because.
Oh shit! I must have blocked that.
Yeah, it's in like the last maybe like 10%.
Right, and Emma tells her, "Don't give up your baby," and like suddenly, or not Emma, sorry.
Don't do it.
I'm sorry. Melody tells her, "Don't do it," and suddenly has this huge turnaround on the whole concept of sex, and she's like, "I'm never gonna have a bought and paid for baby," and it's a very drastic change, and that's how you know what's bad in the book, because suddenly the main character decides it's bad, so that's what's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, at least she does have like a growth in the book, because I think that's a really big problem with a lot of YA is that the character doesn't seem to go through any sort of transformation, and Melody does. That is one thing in the book, but it's because of that same thing that where she keeps referring to a bad incident in her past, but not just coming out and saying what it was. Just like, oh, when that really bad thing happened with the last friend that I birth coached, and then you don't hear what it actually was until the middle of the book.
And that's my other huge problem with this book. Aside from how fucking stupid it was, the fact that there's no major conflict until literally the last chapter.
Yeah, the what we're referring to is that Melody was selected to be the birth coach of her friend, and we came to realize that her friend at some point, she was pro. She had signed contracts and all that other stuff, and at some point stopped taking the antitocin, don't fall in love with your pregnancy drug, and so she starts, getting more moody. She starts, bonding with this pregnancy, and to the point where, she finally goes into labor, goes to give birth, and it's apparently a really rough labor. And at one point, she had to be knocked out. And when she came to, her baby was gone. Because it was not hers anymore. She'd contractually given it up. It basically broke her brain, and she was demanding her pregnancy, demanding her baby. Where's my baby? Where's my baby? They took my baby, and it snapped. She snapped, and
yeah. So Melody's already kind of horrified by that at the beginning of the book.
Yeah,
like she's haunted by this incident.
Yeah. But I think also in some ways haunted partially for the right reasons, because I think that is a clue to her that something's fucked up, but also, haunted for the wrong reasons, because she talks about it how, she didn't do what she was supposed to, and not like, in the sense of protecting this other friend's baby, but she let her friend basically lose her mind, and like it's seen as a negative, societally negative thing for her in her attempts to become the next pro-am club president. It's just, yeah. There's just this book is. I don't know what the author was trying to say.
Yeah, because I mean, like with surrogates, which obviously is a real thing, in most cases, I think they're actually isn't it being like inserted, but with the embryo of another woman, so it's not actually genetically your child.
Yes, they put fertilized eggs into the surrogate mom.
Yes and no. That it happens that way, and in other cases, I have heard of surrogates where that's not the case, where things are done. Like there was actually a court case just decided last year in one of the state, like I want to say like Michigan or Minnesota, like one of the states kind of in that area, where
We're all the same.
the state took the biological father, to court and sued him for child support because he basically supplied the sperm to this lesbian couple, and they used a turkey baster, like you do, apparently, and
I'm pretty sure they didn't actually use a turkey baster.
They did. I want to say that's what I read, but they did it. Basically, they did it themselves. However, they did it themselves. They did it without going to a doctor. And that's the reason why the state went after him, is because it was not professionally done. And they're like, well, according to the law, you are the father, even though you're not on the birth certificate. You have like no contact with this kid, no emotional connection with this kid. You don't care for this kid in any way. You're not claiming them on your taxes. And they still went after him, and the courts decided that legally he was responsible. So it does happen where you go to the fertility specialist. That's what the
contracts are for.
Yeah,
to protect
and you go to the fertility specialist, and they fertilize the egg in a lab, and then basically insert the fertilized egg into either the biological mother or a surrogate or whatever. But yeah, just. But I mean, part of the thing also though with that is that the reason why that's okay in our reality versus why it's so wrong in this is that in the society in the book, you have that aspect of societal pressure and also financial pressure, right? So it's like it's an inappropriate relationship in the same way that professors are not supposed to have sex or relationships with their students, even if that relationship is 100% free from coercion and any kind of or any force or anything like that. There's still the power imbalance, right? Like that's the whole idea behind why statutory rape laws exist, because when it comes to children, they don't have there's a power imbalance and an influence imbalance that even if they're 16, they're like, yes, I fully understand what I'm doing and blah blah blah. It's still the case where there could be because of there could be that pressure that it's not legit, it's not right. Surrogates in our world it's completely voluntary. It's something that everybody is choosing to do of their own volition, but that's not the case in this book. In this case, you have society, you have bands creating songs about children who have barely reached puberty popping out children. You have whole stores geared towards girls pushing the idea of teenage fertility and pregnancy. So there is no, unless you're in the terms of this book, an amateur who is just having sex with their boyfriend because they want to, like one of the characters did. There is no sex and no pregnancy that is free from some degree of coercion in this book. And that's why it taints everything and makes it kind of creepy.
It's a lot like child actors, I think. That's what it made me think of, especially her parents, like Macaulay Culkin's parents just exploiting him to no end when he was a child and trying to take all of his money and all that, because that's not treating him like a person. Like that's treating him like an asset that you have. So I guess I could kind of, it was like she was trying to cover 20 different things in this book, and it was not effective in any instance.
And I do wish I could talk to the author and be like, all right, so what was your intent? What were you trying to do? Because
right.
I agree. I don't think that whatever she was trying to do was really pulled off. Maybe if I heard that straight from the author and what they thought and what they were trying to do, then I'd be like, oh, okay, now it makes more sense. Because like you just said, it seems like they tried for too much and didn't hit. They shot at too many targets and didn't hit a single one.
It was eye-roll inducing. That's what I wrote down in really big letters in my notes. Just that I was actually physically rolling my eyes, especially in the second book. You guys are so lucky you didn't have to read that one.
Yeah, this book just made me angry. Like, in the same way I get angry when I hear about some teacher sexually abusing a student or a priest. It made me angry, because now it's not just one person, it's the entire society of the world that is now pushing these kids to have sex. And just there's
still the same thing with where they talk briefly about China and other places where at least you live in America, because it's way worse in these other places where they're forcing pregnancies. I'm like, how are you not forcing them here? You're basically forcing them here.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah, you may not be holding a gun to their head, but you're only not holding a gun to their head because you've basically created a business opportunity to entice them to do it. It's like, I fully don't think that if they're in this society, if kids weren't willing to have sex, or you couldn't bribe them to have sex, or create a culture that pushes them to have sex, that they'd be doing horrible forced breeding bullshit because, well, you gotta maintain your global superiority somehow. When China's got a seventh of the world population in their country, that's a lot of ground to make back up.
I mean, there are places as well, like there are so many. I don't want to name countries by name because I'm probably overgeneralizing, but I know there are places in the world where women are made to feel like they're worthless if they can't conceive. There are so many cultures where that's your self-worth, is whether you've been able to have babies or not. And this obviously causes population issues and health issues and everything like that. I guess, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I'll name places. I think there's definitely that in the United States. I know that I have a kid, and that there's the assumption that we were definitely asked on more than one occasion after we got married when we were going to start popping out kids.
Yep.
And if we indicated in any way, shape, or form, because at that time we weren't planning on having kids, that we weren't going to have kids, people assumed something was wrong with us. Like, that it wasn't a choice. It was that, oh, you're flawed in some way. And,
and it's everybody else's business as well.
Yeah.
As soon like we're getting married in October, and it's like already everybody else's business.
Oh, yeah.
You know, everyone's asking when it's going to happen, how long are we going to wait, all that, because for some reason it's not a private thing.
Yeah, I married my wife about 1.5 years ago, and shortly after, people were asking, well, when are you going to have kids? And finally it got to the point where I got so sick of hearing it that my response was, in 3 to 5, mind your own fucking businesses.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, and then even when we had our son, you know, the refrain changed to, well, when are you having your second one? It's like, for fuck's sake, you know.
God damn it! We just gave you the one you asked for the first time.
Yeah, you know, we're not fucking machines, an assembly line popping out children. For fuck's sake.
This isn't Children of Men, you know.
Yeah.
Consequences will not be dire.
Right.
You know.
I'm pretty sure humanity will get along if I don't have a kid.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us what is the second book about?
Okay, I'll try to be really brief. I took some notes to try and condense it. So when we open up in Thumped, it's 35 weeks later, and so Harmony obviously is pregnant because she knows that she's pregnant right away. So Harmony's pregnant, and Melody is also pregnant. So they're both pregnant with twins now. They've both been, you know, pregged by John Doe, a.k.a. Gabriel, who for some reason in the second book they never call Gabriel. He's still John Doe for the whole book. And Zen and Melody, the friends, they have all this crazy like sexual tension, and you know, like he's pressuring her to have sex with him, and she's like, I can't right now, you know, like I've got this other stuff going on, because she's also pretending that John Doe is her boyfriend, because he doesn't want to do the stud, you know, horse thing anymore. And so he and Melody pretend that they're together. Meanwhile, they're trying to get in touch with Harmony, you know, and keep in touch with her. And Harmony and Melody have become famous because they're both pregged by the same guy. So, and they're having their due dates at the same time. Oh my God, double due dates. They're so excited about it. So for the cameras, Melody and John Doe are in love. Ephraim, who is Harmony's husband, Paul Bunyan, she and him have gone back to Goodside, which is their culty place where they live. And things aren't going very well because Harmony is still being her naughty self, asking all these questions when you're not supposed to ask questions, and questioning their way of life and everything. And basically what happens is the elders of her society decide that she's not fit to be a mother, so they're going to take her babies away as soon as they're born. I don't know. I don't remember how she even finds that out, but so she has to escape, and I think Melody and John Doe come and save her, and Ephraim helps her get free. So sorry, got my notes. So eventually it kind of comes out that Melody's faked her pregnancy, so that's not even real. She's still a virgin, but they have the technology where they can simulate pregnancy and inject you with some sort of matter that actually gives you a real bump, so when people touch it they can feel a baby moving in there. And so she feels as though she's actually pregnant. Like she has to go through all of the, you know, the trauma of being pregnant, but she isn't actually pregnant. So
because that's not going to be psychologically scarring or anything.
No. Well, the worst of it is, okay, so I'm going to skip a lot of really unimportant stuff. But basically what we find out is Zen has pretty much forced Melody to do this because he's got his own political agenda. So he has decided this is the best thing that they can do, because now the two girls are famous, and it will provide them with this platform so that he can denounce their whole way of living and society and all this stuff. So because, you know, he loves her, he's going to force her to fake a pregnancy and make a martyr out of her. And it's so frustrating.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
After reading Bumped, I thought, there's no way a book with this same concept could be any stupider. Holy crap, she did it.
Yeah.
She wrote a book.
And this one's a lot shorter as well, so everything is kind of like really quick. All this stuff happens. Like they really should have just made it one book, and it would have covered everything. It didn't need to be two books.
It sounds like it, because Bumped wasn't that long to begin with.
No. So this book was even shorter. It took me like 2 hours to read it, maybe.
The thing
she's escaped, and she doesn't want to see John Doe because she's still traumatized and still thinks that, you know, he was faking his love for her and everything. And eventually they have like a 20-minute conversation, and all's well, and they're in love again, and she goes into labor right on cue. So he takes her to a birthing center because they're not hospitals. They're called birthing centers. And because they didn't alert the press or anything, they're kind of able to get in under the radar. And she really wants to be awake for her pregnancy and experience it because they're her babies, and she wants to keep her babies. And yeah, so she has them, and then suddenly is like not into them anymore. Like they knock her out for her pregnancy. And she just, I don't know, she kind of has a change of heart where she doesn't actually want to keep them anymore. And she doesn't come out and say that, but you can tell she doesn't really feel any kind of attachment for them, and you're not really sure if it's because they had her on drugs or just because she's a 16-year-old, and 16-year-old maybe doesn't want to raise twins by herself. So in the meantime, like, Melody's at school and has found out that Harmony's in labor, so she goes to the hospital. And now there's all the press have figured it out, and and before this even, yeah, so I think I said, but Zen's been trying to get Melody to have sex with him this whole time. So he's been, like, pressuring her a lot, and she's been fending him off. So they are having fights, and they're not getting along or whatever. And meanwhile, Melody is all conflicted because the people that, you know, her parents have organized this contract for, the Jadens, they think that she's really having babies. So they actually, you know, they think that they're about to be parents, and she feels terrible about this because it's a terrible thing to do to someone, to make them think that you're going to give them children and then not. So she's kind of mad at Zen for putting her through all this. And basically what happens is her parents come to the hospital, so they're back in town now, and they're so excited that she's about to have babies and everything, and she tells them the truth. She says, I'm not really pregnant, and they don't believe her. She tries to tell them, they don't believe her, blah, 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 and so she does this really big dramatic, like, swan dive off a table to, like, smash her belly to make them think that she's, like, aborting the babies or whatever. And it ends up that she finds the courage somehow to address the press and apologize about faking her pregnancy, and she has this whole speech about girls, and, you know, and basically then it all kind of comes clear that the author's trying to say, hey, girls should be responsible for their own bodies and all that. So, and she gets, a lot of people hate her, a lot of people support her, and Harmony ends up giving her babies to the Jadens because she doesn't want to raise the babies. And John Doe tries to pressure her to keep them. Like, it's just so ridiculous. Like, she's trying to make all these statements, but then she makes the two teenage boys in it not in keeping with what she's trying to say, because they're both still trying to pressure these girls to do things they don't want to do. So that was my really quick 5-minute wrap of what happens in Thumbed.
So it sounds like the moral of the story.
Mother's dead. Sorry, what?
It sounds like the moral of the story is that boys and men are just evil.
I mean, like, Zen apologizes and he says, I shouldn't have done this to you, and, you know, he kind of comes clean in the end, but I found that kind of frustrating. I didn't really think that was any different than, you know, the Edward shit of, like, oh, you can't be with me, I'm too dangerous for you, but don't be with anyone else, how dare you, you know, it just, same. Everyone's trying to control the girls. Like, everyone in the book the whole time is trying to control these girls.
Don't be around.
Ephraim gets a boyfriend, though, so that's good.
Don't be around me. Stay away from me, but I'm going to live and going to come and stare at you while you sleep and follow you home and outside your bedroom, because that makes consistent sense. So I can't remember who it was who asked about on the Facebook group, who asked about, like, kind of Tyler's and my perspective as men reading this, what we thought about it as far as, like, the boy, you know, like, I don't know, I think, like, like I said in the Facebook group, I am apprehensive about talking about this from, like, well, like what I thought about it from like a perspective of a guy in relation to the men in the book, because the main characters are women, and I don't want to take away from that. But somebody asked me, so I'm going to answer. I thought this book was pretty demeaning towards boys.
I agree.
In that it reduces their whole value to whether or not they are able to knock up women and as many women as possible, right? Like, that's the whole value that John Doe and these other superstar young men have, is their ability to be pregnant. And, instead of now being the fastest runner, they have the highest sperm count, or their sperm, like John Doe at one point remarks that he has the fastest known swimmers on the planet.
But even before that, it's all based on their
physical attributes,
mental and physical attributes. And Zen, who is, for all intents and purposes, an amazing, intelligent, attractive person, well, he's just a little too short, so he will never be, superstar sperm material.
Yeah.
Even though he has computer hacking skills, because every teenage boy has computer hacking skills.
Oh, he's got computer hacking skills. He's charming. I would say he's emotionally manipulative, but whatever. That's just
super emotionally manipulative.
Yeah.
Girls, by the way, in book 2, I didn't say that. He shoots up like 4 inches, so now every girl in their school wants to have sex with him. But he's saving himself for Melody because he loves her.
But I mean, really, there are 5 men in this book, and none of them are any good. You have the adopted dad, who's a scumbag, in my opinion. You have the agent, who is also a scumbag. You have John Doe, who is a perfect example of everything that's wrong with the culture as a whole. You have Zen, who, as we described, is for all of his positive attributes, is emotionally manipulative and I think in a way negatively political. Like, he's willing to use somebody negatively and negatively impact their life to try and make a political statement that he feels needs to be made. And then there's what's his face, Harmony's husband, who is like just he's a non-entity. He's nothing. He's not in the eyes of the society. He's not a man because he's not out producing children, but he's also, as a human being, he's not really anything. He has no personality.
He has absolutely nothing to the story.
Yeah.
Except it's how they get Harmony off stage.
Pretty much.
Well, yeah, he's like a plot twist, really. That's all he is. Because then big reveal that she's already married.
And it's so this book is very demeaning to men, to young boys. I'm trying to think about what a young man might think reading this book. I find it kind of difficult to try and think how they might take it because, without knowing really what the author was going towards, I can't think of what they were trying to say to young women. Except maybe, like you were saying, Emma, and thumped that at the end, it's, body autonomy and all this other stuff. Because every male character is such a crappy individual.
I don't know, though. They're like all products of their environment. I don't think that any of the boys are anything other than what they could have become based on society's influences, where at least, Melody and Harmony are trying to fight the systems that they've cornered themselves into.
Yeah.
And Zen is to a degree as well. And John Doe, I mean, he kind of comes out saying, like, I'm only regarded as much as, my own virility, and that's the same for boys that, like you said, play sports and just compete really in any competitions for jobs or for debates or, music, anything. It's all about competition, and especially in America, like living over here, it's really different. They just have not the same level of competitiveness, just even in their culture. Like, just the cutthroat nature of going to high school in America is so different than it is here in Australia.
Regarding you wondering how a young male reading this book would respond to the male characters, Matt, I don't think you need to worry about that.
Not too many of them are going to be reading this
I
book.
cannot imagine any teenage boy picking this up, flipping the book over, reading the back, and going, "Oh, well, this sounds like a delightful read."
What's interesting to me is that the whole bumped and thumped titles, because if I'm remembering correctly, thumped is like the negative term, or basically it would be like, I was fucked. Like that's their version of saying like I got fucked, or fucked over. Whereas bumped is you were fucked, you got knocked up. Or bumping is their term for having sex, because you're trying to produce a bump. So it's interesting to me that this first book would be about, obviously the title I think references Harmony getting knocked up by John Doe, but it makes me curious then, Emma, what you think the thumped could refer to.
What I think it means.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of thought it meant like duped in a way, because
I can see
because
that.
of her fake pregnancy. I know they refer to it, and I probably should have written down what it was. My eyes glazed over for a lot of the details.
Yeah.
But it is good to hear what you guys have to say about just the male perspective on it, and like this idea, like you were saying before with statutory rape, how if a male teacher takes advantage of a female student, it's a horrendous crime. But if a female teacher takes advantage of a 14-year-old student, like, he should think himself fortunate. It's baffling to me that could be the case.
Well, it's not. I mean, I know that definitely in the United States that's not the case. I've seen numerous cases where female teachers have had inappropriate relationships or inappropriate encounters with male students.
Sure, but what's the average amount of time one of them spends in jail?
Oh, I don't know. I have no idea. I mean,
whereas the other way, with genders reversed, with the older male and the younger female, that dude is branded a pedophile and spends a lot of time in jail over it.
I know that they have to. I know that they, in a few of the cases I read about, they have to register. But like there was one where the teacher got knocked up and the kid was, I think, 14 or 15, and then she had his kid, went to jail, and then they ended up getting married. And as far as I know, are still married. Yeah, and
didn't they parody that on 30 Rock?
Yes, they did. With Susan Sarandon too.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, and it could be that the society sees that as being, treats it differently.
Well, the fact that they could parody it on 30 Rock and not have it be an outrage is pretty telling, because they couldn't do it the other way. They couldn't.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Older female, younger male is much more socially acceptable. I'm not going to say it is approved, but it is much more socially acceptable than older male, younger female.
Yeah, it's definitely in the whole here's to you, Mrs. Robinson sort of deal.
Yeah. They can throw that on. They can throw older female, younger male on 30 Rock, whereas the only time you see older male, younger female is on Law and Order.
SVU.
Specifically SVU.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of anything else to say about this book. It pissed me off. It really did. Like,
I just felt bad for everyone in it. Like, no one was in a good situation. But the fact that, like, Harmony has had all these inner conflicts about, oh, maybe I don't belong in Good Side. Maybe I should stay over here with Melody. And she'd pretty much made up her mind to stay. And then, she feels rejected by John Doe romantically. And suddenly it's like, oh, I'm peacing out and going back to Good Side. It just...
Yeah, it also seems like everyone starts to have issues and starts to think about how things are wrong, but they never really go all the way to really realize that no, things are fucked. Like, Melody starts to, especially when like her best friend, like, doesn't care about the fact that she almost died giving birth to somebody else's kid, basically. All she cares about is the fact that she's got a car and she's going to get a tummy tuck and she's got college paid for. And
she had to sleep with her ex-boyfriend for that baby, because she'd gone amateur the first time and given that baby up for adoption, and then the same parents requested that she have another baby with the same kid. But by this point, she and her boyfriend had broken up. So it's so clinical the way that they talk about sex in this book. It's not emotional. It's not, it's mass orgies and it's, contracts, and it's completely for reproduction. Like, no one in this book is having sex for enjoyment as much as Zen wants Harmony to have sex with him for enjoyment. It's just, he seems to be the only one that's motivated by his own enjoyment.
Honestly, the thing is that because you never hear about the fact, like, the only people you hear about getting anything out of it financially is when they're men, or like people like John Doe, who are the celebrities. Like, you never hear about the car, the college fund, or the tuition, or anything that the best friend's ex-boyfriend may have gotten to entice him.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And like,
well, yeah, it's because to entice a teenage boy to have sex is just to say, hey, you want to have sex? Whereas for the female, it's like, hey, would you like to have sex, carry a child to term, deliver it, and then give it up? The guy, it's like, seriously, it's like 20 minutes of your time.
I'm sorry, these are teenagers. Not 20. It's not going to be 20.
I'm including the time it takes to have the meal beforehand to get to know the other person.
They're not doing that.
No, they don't need that. They have
they drink a roofie colada and then they get down.
Well, that drug's got to take a little bit of time to kick in, right?
Yeah, but that's the time to the bedroom, apparently.
Wasn't Melody taking like anti-roofie so that she wouldn't want to have sex with other people, so she wouldn't break her contract or something?
Yeah, or something.
Right. Yeah, that was the first use of the anti-toastin we saw, was that the contract kids used it to keep from having sex with everybody.
Because otherwise you cannot possibly abstain. You have no willpower.
Well, hence the mass sextinction parties, which is basically just mass orgies. I don't know. I think that's pretty much it that I've got. Tyler, do you have anything else? Anna, do you have anything else you want to say?
Just my annoyance over the fact that we only got half a book.
Yeah, and
it's the fucking Elixir all over again.
Yeah.
Finally some conflict. The book's over.
Or the stupid good witch of Calaveras.
Oh, right. Yeah. Finally something happened. By the way, the book's done.
Yeah.
Come back next month for the sequel.
We'll introduce the plot in the last third of the book.
That's the only explanation. Seriously, this could have been condensed into one book.
Yeah, what probably happened was they said, here's your contract, you have to give us 2 books, and she said, oh, shit.
Yeah.
And she just tore her manuscript in half and said, yeah, it was 2 books all along. Surprise!
Oh, this is one of my points I didn't get to make, sorry, and I'm like rambling on. I don't understand why in school they wouldn't be learning how to be parents. Like, what happened?
They don't need to learn how to be parents because they're gonna have their babies and give them away.
Yeah,
I know, but why wouldn't if you're depending on these young kids for your society, wouldn't you at least try to teach them how to be parents?
We don't do that with our kids now.
No, they wouldn't, because the thing is that they don't want those children raising the babies. Those babies aren't for them. The babies are for the adults who are no longer able to have kids. So
Right.
they're the ones who are going to be, in theory, parenting. But, I mean, look, I look to see, that's the thing with the world building of this.
You can have babies, but you can't have babies.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I look at with the world building of this book, is that you have people who, before the virus, probably were in like their early 20s. So they had their ability to become parents, more or less stolen from them by this disease. Mm-hmm. So you're eventually going to get to a point where there is no society left that remembers what it's like to have children simply because you want to have kids with that person. And you're not going to have parents anymore. You're going to have business managers managing a commodity. And
or you have parents who have a child because they can afford it and they want to have a child, rather than unwanted pregnancies that we're going to have now.
Yeah, I can definitely see, like, further on down the line, the poor people are just, cranking out as many kids as they can, because they can sell them off and get money that way, and kind of in that same sense that, you used to try and have a lot of kids when you were a peasant or a farmer or whatever, because then you had the family and the hands to work the land, and if you had boys, great, then you got a daughter and you got dowries and you got all that other marriage price and all that other bullshit, and so now you're kind of reverting back, in time.
Well, maybe
all that ground.
Maybe we actually missed the entire point of the book, and that it's not about teens having sex, and it's actually about class commentary and warfare, where now the poor aren't really allowed to have kids because they can't afford them when they're able to raise them now. Mm-hmm. If you're poor, you have your kids and you sell them. Only rich people can raise children, so only rich people are imparting their knowledge on the next generation.
Yeah, and you totally just want to buy girls. And it's like the opposite, like you said, of current society, where a lot of people want boys. Now they'd all just be wanting girls, because it's the same with, like, there are some African countries where slavery is still an issue, even though it's illegal, and they want mostly young girls because they're the supply, like they'll have the endless supply to create more slaves for them. That's like slave commodity is a female.
Yeah, that's right. But no, I do think that's definitely a good point. I think that eventually you get to the point where, like that slogan you brought up, that you're 16 and pregnant and the most important person in the world, is very true. Because when you have a system like that, when it takes 9 to 10 months to create another person, you're basically taking that female out of circulation, whereas a boy, well, they can just keep fucking. So you don't need as many boys as you do girls. So girls would become a lot more valuable in value, because you're at that point, excess males, they're not going to be, especially if they're not hitting the marks and smarts or looks or talent or ability or anything, they're not going to be passing on their genetic material and creating the next generation of kids. That's going to be the rich studs, or the B-listers or whatever. Then you run into the eventual issue of there's a lack of genetic diversity at that point. But would be much further down the line.
Yeah, well, so much of the commentary about this book online that you find is how it's like making fun of the glorification of teenage pregnancy. I don't think this book is making fun of anything. Like,
There's nothing fun about this book at all.
No, it is all really awful. Like, I don't think it's making fun of anything, and least of all the glorification of teen pregnancy. I don't know why, but I didn't see much commentary on that.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that in the fact that, you know, the culture of the book hypes teen pregnancy so much that it becomes distasteful. Like, you know, the idea of the pregnant 11-year-old who has no emotional connection, right? She's still a child. It's very obvious that she is completely immature, but she's cranking out a kid.
Well, it's the same as how 11-year-olds now want to meet Prince Charming and get married, and how that's the fantasy. I think in this book the fantasy has just become having babies rather than having relationships.
I really, really hope that Disney continues the trend that they started with Brave and Frozen of the, no, I can't marry this person I just met and have a family with them. That's not cool. Who does that? Nobody does that. That's stupid. But yeah. All right. I think we're probably at an hour and a half now.
Yeah, just about. And it looks like we just lost Emma.
All right. Well, so I think we should probably start wrapping things up then. Let's see. Next month. What's the title of next month's book?
The title of next month's book, I have it right here behind me. The title of next month's book is Star Trek: The Next Generation, Starfleet Academy number 13. Now, this is a young adult series of books written in the Star Trek universe. This one is number 13, The Haunted Starship.
How did you find about this?
I just Googled worst published Star Trek fiction. And this is the lowest rated Star Trek book on Amazon. Other titles in the series are the worst. The first one is the book I wish I'd known about before I picked this one. The first book is Worf's First Adventure. How great would that be? Line of Fire, Survival, Capture the Flag, Atlantis Station, Mystery of the These sound like fucking Hardy Boys titles.
I think I've read these.
Secret of the Lizard People.
I think I read these. I think I read the Capture the Flag one.
But it's
like when it would have been age appropriate.
It's super short. It's 115 pages. So in addition to The Haunted Starship, Matt, myself, and our guest for the next month, Aaron of the Brass Needles podcast, will be each selecting a piece of fan fiction from the internet to share with each other.
Oh my god, do Backstreet Boys fan fiction. That exists.
It specifically has to be Star Trek.
If there is Star Trek / Backstreet Boys fan fiction out there, I will find it.
Emphasis on the slash. So anyway, we're wrapping up. Thank you. I'm glad that you were able to rejoin us, and thank you very much for this book suggestion and your generosity in donating it to us. We do really appreciate when people do that, because it helps take the burden off of us that not only do we have to read the shitty book, but then having to fork out money for it. We're just like, oh, okay, well, I guess we're doing that. So thank you.
Well, luckily I got it from the library, so I didn't have to pay for it myself.
So thank you very much for joining us on the podcast today. All the way from Australia, you have the distinction of being our first international guest host on the podcast.
Woo!
Yeah. So you go enjoy your football and your.
I've been watching on my phone. I'm pretty sure we're losing.
Oh. Well.
That's all right. That's how I feel about hockey right now. I'm not even going to bother watching it now.
Sharks.
Fucking blew a 3-game lead.
Okay.
Anyway,
Broke my heart. Anyway, this has been the Your Book Is Why Daddy Drinks podcast. I'm Matt.
This is Tyler.
And
And with us this month, yeah.
And Emma. Emma, thank you very much. Thank you again, and good night.
No worries.